Good afternoon and welcome to everyone who's joining us today for the Future of the Workplace discussion. I think it's a very relevant topic today because just a couple of days ago, I met the first person who told me that they've actually lost their job to a bot. So this was a person who was earlier doing research, and now apparently there's an automated platform which does exactly the same thing, and she has become, basically the QC for the bot. So this, and I'm obviously simplifying it. These are the many issues, and also what should HR do to help employees cope with these changes? It's some of the things we're going to talk about today. And for those of you who haven't actually experienced this forum before, this is brought to you by the India CHRO Forum, which is powered by Sodexo. And it's a community of senior marketers. So if you're not a member, do join up. And for today's session, we're really privileged to have two very expert people. So we have Manish Bahl, who's a Senior Director, Center for the Future of Work, Cognizant, and Sharad Verma, who's a Chief Human Resource Officer for Sears Holdings in India. So we're going to actually have two perspectives. One is the overall conceptual framework, large trends in the workplace. And Sharad is going to share with us the practical aspects of this and how, as CHROs, we can actually help employees to make this transition and position ourselves better to manage the future of the workplace. So with this, I'm going to hand over the floor to Manish Bahl. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you. Thanks, Jessie. I'm trying to share my screen. It says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Okay, Jessie, can you see my screen? Hey, Jessie, if you can see my screen?
Yes, Manish, we can see your screen.
Okay, good. So yeah, thanks, Jessie. Our job is to figure out, how the future of work works. And for that, we engage many C-level executives, universities, analysts, technologists, and economists to make sense of the changes that are happening around us. And what exactly and how exactly, the future of work will be reimagined, reconfigured, and restructured in the years to come. And that's what we will try to unlock today. And the role of HR in this, changing world. So if you look at this graphic, this illustrates the current media scenario of jobs. Hardly a week goes by without distressing news of automation displacing humans from the workforce. Especially when you have when you see scary predictions from renowned institutions like Oxford that says 47% of jobs will disappear over the next 20 to 25 years. So this is scary. All this making us rethink the fundamentals of companies and institutions and the very nature of work itself. But there is a problem. And the problem is media and people who are making these scary predictions, fail to make the current, the crucial distinction between jobs and tasks. They view jobs in a binary sense, which means either jobs will be automated or they will not, which we believe is the wrong approach. So question is not, will this job become automated? Rather, the question should be, will this task of the job become automated? Because any knowledge, job is a collection of tasks. Some of these tasks are ripe for automation, no doubt about it, while others will never be. For instance, you are an HR leader, and that's your job. And what task that you perform as an HR leader? So screening candidates, talking to them, coordinating with the hiring managers to understand their expectations, and so on and so forth. Now with AI and automation, some of these tasks will be automated, which is going to be good, like screening candidates. But your job will still intact. Rather, it's going to get enhanced as you can be more focused on what's more important to the hiring manager or to the business. For instance, empathy and collaboration will become much more important for HR leaders, in the future. And that's where we believe majority of jobs are going to get enhanced. Recently, we published our new book, "What to Do When Machines Do Everything," And in this book, we have highlighted how the new machine will change the labor force in three distinct ways. First is job automation, where the majority of noise which is there in the market today, but only 12% of existing jobs are at the risk of being taken over by bots. Whereas if you look at 75% of existing jobs will be altered or enhanced by the bot. The employment will remain, but these jobs will be delivered with greater output or greater quality. And then third, creates new revenue opportunities through models. So what does it mean? What does it mean? It means that enhancement jobs will be protected jobs. At the heart of enhancement is the simple idea that nearly every person and job can and must be improved through technology. It is you, your job, plus technology. Every employee must be an enhanced employee. Every banker must be an enhanced banker. It is you, your job, plus technology. So more tools mean more efficiency, which means productivity. And this results in more margin and growth for the business. And that's where the role of HR is going to get elevated in this new world. Why? Because it's all about amplifying human performance, man plus machine, reaching new thresholds in performance and job satisfaction. And if you look at the difference between the two, humans are good at the art of the job, whereas machines are good at the science of the job. So for the majority of jobs, with high emotional and judgment content, the man-machine combination will enhance output and protect employment. Who doesn't want to, work which has more impact, greater efficiency, more enjoyment, and with increasing levels of, excellence? So for instance, capturing employee data continuously, and then you have algorithms to analyze, look for patterns, contextualization, the personalization piece, best practices. So suggesting the next best action to take in the situation. In one interesting example, the team at Amazon Web Services, AWS, they use AI to suggest to employees that these are the places you should be focusing on your attention today. So it helps them, make their people more effective, more efficient, and also to make so reaching new thresholds in performance and job satisfaction. But there is a catch. And the catch is, the transition to this new world will not be easy. There will be some significant changes in skill sets. So machines will pick up a greater number of discrete tasks as time goes on, but humans will still need apply. So this is, from our early report, the work ahead in Asia Pacific. And the chart here, the blue web represents job skills that are at demand, today. And then the green, web represents the skills that are going to be much more important in, 2020. So if you look at it, as well as the ability to relate to other people, all are even vital for business success today. But in the coming years, these very human traits, things that you and I and all of us do naturally, but can personal and work lives and for our businesses. So all of us, including leaders, need to enhance our current skills when it comes to engaging with others, leading, reasoning, interpreting, applying judgment, being creative, and applying the human touch. So these behaviors and activities are still far outside the purview of current and near future technologies, and will remain so far, in the years to come, even as the new machines become much more, capable. So what all does, mean for HR? What are the changes, the HR as a function is going to experience over the next few years? So we believe, HR is at a very, interesting state. It's at the intersection of company, which means your assets, the business growth, the strategies, and then employees and AI and automation. And HR is at the center of all the changes that are happening around us. So it's at the intersection of company, automation, and employees. So that way, if you look at it, HR is in a great place to take, the business growth to the next level. How? So there are some, suggestions right at our end. We believe that it's going to help HR to grow, to be successful in this new machine age. To start with, get ready to deflate fear of bots among employees. I think that is very much important because the future of work for HR will be HR. We are not facing a robot, dystopia in which our kids will be taught by bots. Bots will help us, but they're not going to replace HR or other key functions within an organization. So you will need to be ready to explain how enhancement can become life better for more people. So HR is the new engagement, the enhancement function within organizations. But before you do that, it's important that you apply it within the HR function as well, enhancing your own role. What does it mean? Ask yourself, what type of task should be immediately automated in HR, or how artificial intelligence can enhance the existing HR roles? For instance, you can consider some guiding principles like, highly repetitive tasks, or maybe tasks with low demand for human judgment, a task requiring low levels of empathy, or maybe tasks, generating and handling huge volumes of data. So all such tasks should be automated. And one good example here is consumer goods giant, Unilever, which has been hiring employees using neuroscience-based brain games and AI, and it's a huge success. So instead of sending, representatives to elite universities, collecting resumes and arranging follow-up, phone interviews for, these students that stuck out, what they did was they asked candidates to submit their LinkedIn profiles. So no resumes were asked; they were not required at all. And then, they spent around 20 minutes playing 12 neuroscience-based games. So if their results match the required profiles of certain position, they move on to a virtual interview where they record, responses to preset interview, questions. And the technology then analyzes keywords like, intonation and the body language and makes notes on them for the hiring manager. So all of this portion can be completed on a smartphone or a tablet. So if the candidate makes it through these two steps, only then they are invited to Unilever office, where they will go through a day in the life, sort of a scenario. So as a result, some very interesting, outcomes that they got through this exercise between July 2016 and June 2017. The average time for a candidate to be hired went from 4 months to 3 weeks, with a cumulative saving of 50,000 hours of candidates' time. And recruiters' time spent on application was decreased by as high as 75%. So Unilever, they hired their most diverse class to date. And the rate of offers to candidates who made it to the final round increased from 63% to 80% now. And the acceptance rate of these offers also increased from 60 to close to 82% today. So these are very interesting, case studies, right, that can help you get a fair idea how other companies are leveraging the power of automation and AI, and what you can learn about it, and how you can apply it within your organization. And once you have done that, once you have experimented it, the AI within your department, within your function, it's time to take it to the entire organization, and that's where HR can play a very important role. So the work of any HR leader is therefore to identify the rules, processes, experiences that can be upgraded by newly available technologies, and to imagine new approaches and constructs. For instance, HR function, in many organizations still called on three cases: when you're hiring someone, when you're firing someone, or during appraisals. So what if you become an enhanced function to help employees provide better service more quickly, and in the process generate all-round improvements, including job security? So over the next few years, we believe every process and business function is going to get impacted with a new machine. And HR has a great opportunity. It's a once a century, kind of an opportunity to be at the forefront of all these changes. So start working with business and IT functions to identify targets that are ripe for automation and AI and their impact on people. And then look for opportunities where real time makes a real difference. It means about velocity. So what if employees can have real time interaction with HR regardless of their location and time? How much advantage could your business gain if your employees have an access to instant information? The point here is that the new machine will free up time for higher value work and improve productivity, which are powerful outcomes of enhancement. So the chances are very good that you are sitting on some of these opportunities right now. And as we saw earlier, all of us need to double down on human-centric skills. That's going to be the key role HR will play in the future, which means you should conduct hackathons, get some sort of a game sphere scheduled, involve leaders, build an environment of collaboration. And collaboration can be very subjective, can be very different, for different organizations. It's not about building a very cool place and call it a collaborative one. It's all about the purpose behind it. So, what are the industry problems? What are the people problems that you are trying to solve, and the tools that you are going to use to address those problems? So, collaboration is all about having a purpose in place and leveraging technology to address them. And then last but not least, aim high and be bold. Virtually every successful company in the digital economy we meet, they almost share exactly the same point of view, their experience. None of them talked about crushing the competition or getting rich. They all talked about using technology to solve really important problems in the industry, in education, healthcare, agriculture, and dozen of other industries. So ask yourself what problem HR can help solve. That's going to be important. So these are the 6, 7 suggestions at our end, which is going to help HR as a function to become more of an enhancement function and not only HR in this new machine age. Because at the end of the day, your new goal should be how you are going to empower your employees, celebrate their enhancement journey with ice cubes rather than they are getting sunk by hidden, icebergs. So now it's up to HR function, the role that they are going to play in this, new world, whether they are going to, empower employees to be successful in this new machine age, or rather we are going to get burdened with all the fear around automation and AI. In case you want to learn more about what we have been writing about around the future of work, this is the book, What to Do When Machines Do Everything. It's available on Amazon. You can order a copy of it. It's very interesting. We have provided some frameworks that organizations can leverage to be successful in this new machine age. It's not only meant for one or two functions, rather for all the business leaders, including HR. So that's it at my end. Back to you, Jessie.
Thank you so much, Manish. And there are some questions, but we'll take them after Sharad's piece. They're mostly about, tools and what can they use and so on. Um, but Sharad, if you could get your deck up as well, and I can recommend the book because I reviewed it actually for Outlook Business, and I did find it interesting because it tells you how to collaborate with automation and bots rather than be afraid of it. So I think that's going forward, that's going to be a really good skill to have. So now over to you, Sharad, for a pragmatic view of what can HR do to make things better. Sharad, you can share your screen directly. Perfect. You can see your screen now.
Can you hear me as well? Thanks.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that could build right on where Manish left. Basically, how to use some of these words that we hear about very commonly in our daily lives, like artificial intelligence or algorithms or bots. So exactly how we use
Sharad, I think you need to be closer to the mic. We can hear a little bit of interference.
Okay, is that better?
Or speak up a little bit.
Yeah, is that better?
Yes, better. Manoj, can you confirm you can hear us now?
Okay.
And
Uh,
yeah.
So, and also about, what are the practical aspects in terms of, our daily HR lives? How do we use some of these concepts without getting overwhelmed with them, or feeling like, we require some kind of an expert who we don't know exists or not, and how we can help us with our daily lives. So that's what I'm going to cover. I'll start with this image, which was quite popular on WhatsApp. I received it one of the groups. It says like there's a chief digital officer, and under that person there's VP of hype, VP of disruption.
Sharad, sorry, we're still having complaints that people can't hear you. It's very muffled, actually. You need to
Okay.
speak up.
Okay, is that better
Yeah, this
now?
is much better.
Okay, okay. I was using an external mic, but I think there's something wrong with that. Okay. Okay, so basically, I'm going to cover the practical aspect of how to actually use some of these concepts in our daily life as HR practitioners. And so this is like a WhatsApp image. Is it all about hype, disruption, or buzzwords? But actually, the delivery is where is the part that is missing. How do we actually use it in our daily lives? So these are, I'll also talk about a couple of case studies where you can actually, the ordinary HR person can actually use it, the so-called ordinary. I don't believe there is any HR person who's actually ordinary, can use it in their day-to-day lives. So the first thing I want to talk about is it the death of HR as we know it? And what we know about HR is we run processes, we are very precedent driven. If a decision comes to us, we talk about, okay, how was it done in the past? Are we setting an exception? And how is it going to impact people? So primarily we look in the rear view mirror a lot as a function, right? We respect experience, we respect judgment, we maintain records. We also we also juggle between being strategic sometimes, being tactical, being administrative sometimes. We are great with hindsight. We can analyze a lot in terms of why things went wrong, and we balance between where to be flexible and where to provide adherence. Traditionally, we have also, in a lot of organizations, we have also followed the so-called approval culture. Like if you go for an exception, something needs to be approved by a person at X level, and if it's a bigger exception, then somebody higher up has to do it. And the underlying assumption there is that people who are higher up in the hierarchy make better judgments because otherwise they wouldn't be where they are. So that's HR as we know it. It's not, I'm not saying it's bad or good or whatever. It's not judgmental, but this has been our life for a long time. What is it now? We are talking now about organization simplification, simplification of processes and policies, becoming more technology and automation based, becoming analytics savvy, where we actually make sense of the data that flows into our function. Uh, Almost all of us are dealing with mobile-friendly millennials a lot. In most of our organizations, there are different generations of employees. There are millennials um, form a large part of our workforce, and there are also people in their 30s, in their 40s, and in their 50s, each with a different level of familiarity and the way that they use technology, and that makes HR work more interesting, right? We are living in a culture where
Sharad, sorry, you're still going to have to speak a little loudly. It's fading
okay,
again.
okay. So also we are living in this learn and work from anywhere, anytime. This webinar being an example of it, and then the algorithms, robots, and the future scenario building that Manish talked about a lot. I think a fundamental change which has happened is that we all have started becoming more data driven as against experience or judgment driven in terms of the way that we manage the company, the processes, the people, etc. I think it's not a negative thing although I worded it as death of HR, but it's basically, I think that we are transforming from a dinosaur to a unicorn, and that's great news, right? So basically, I think, like Manish said, there are certain tasks which will disappear in a certain time frame. It could be immediately, or 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years, and replaced with newer things. And the things which will basically disappear are those that are low value add. They are basically repetitive, and they don't require the human part, of us. It's more of the things that we do, like a copy paste repeatedly without using too much of judgment or intelligence or emotions or empathy. And it's also not just because the HR as a function is changing, but it's also because life in as a society is changing, and organizations who operate in that world are also changing dramatically. And so on the right side are the things that will kind of take over the world, where you have a lot of repetition, you have subjective uh, subjective elements and all that. I call this the new HR person who operates in this world as a talent hacker, and the model which I think of is somebody who uses both psychology and math. The psychology is basically, using neuroscience, using empathy, using mindfulness, being a culture builder, using positive psychology, using storytelling. So you can have a lot of data, you can have a lot of analytics, you can have pattern reading, you can have artificial intelligence. But the way I think a human can put together a story, I think it will take some time for robots to come up with that. Although I did read an article that there are robots who can write fiction or romantic novels, etc. But then they would probably follow defined patterns or something that has already happened. And but storytelling, I think, is a very human, especially the emotional engagement part of it. And but also the new HR person is somebody who combines psychology with math, in terms of analytics, digital HR, the tools, the algorithms, is a good designer as well, and a builder, and designer of experiences, designer of interaction, designer of UI, and so on. And therefore good at design thinking, pattern reading, and is good at sense making. And then, so, and when I talk about this, it's not just at a knowledge level, but it's also as a doer or somebody who's a maker, right? I think if we shift into that mode, then we start becoming effective in this world. So I'll give two quick case studies. One is how to build a predictive analytics to bring increased retention, and so this is like a mathematical model. I think as HR people, we all know the factors which increase retention. It could be manager, it could be compensation, it could be rewards, it could be quality of work, it could be the company culture, etc. Now, when you apply the math filter to it, which is predictive analytics, you see that certain factors kind of go together, and whereas others don't go together, and so you start looking at it mathematically and analytically, and you start thinking about what works with what else, which factor neutralizes the other factors, and and what is the relative importance of those factors. So what you can do is that, which factors play a major role in your organization is a question that you can ask. Which are positive factors, which are deal breakers, what is the relative importance of each factor. And when I say that it's mathematically, so like commute time is 1.5x more important than compensation for somebody. And always factors play together, right? It's not just one factor which plays in isolation. Um, so um, so that gives you additional data to work on from a mathematical analysis perspective, which factors work together better. So which factors neutralize each other, for example, and which factors are equalizers. And how well do you understand your employees through analytics and data? The second one is a mathematical model for employee engagement or candidate experience, because experience is highly subjective. I see that this topic is used a lot, but I'm going to propose here a mathematical model how you can measure it and improve it. So this is like a reception area for a company where a candidate walks in, has certain experiences, and then gets interviewed. And the way to mathematically model it is that for each experience, you give either a positive point or a negative in terms of does it give you a positive energy or a negative energy, and then design the experience to increase positive scores. We will see on the next slide how it exactly works, but let's say there are components like the person walks in, talks to the receptionist, the receptionist tells them person is going to happen next. There's a waiting area, there's somebody who comes and talks to the candidate, there is a waiting time, and then there's an interview setting, right? So something we all are familiar with. And so the way to score it is that if the receptionist, and all of these I have intentionally put it as positive experiences, but they could be negative as well. And we have experienced that right on either side. So receptionist has been expecting you and knows your name, and that's a pleasant positive experience. So you give it plus 20, for example. You are given a clear idea of what's going to happen next, so it's plus 20. While you are waiting, you get there's an iPad that is given to you. You can play games, or you can see certain practice questions that will come in the interview. Maybe there is a bean bag or whatever. So the experience is like say plus 25. There's a person who answers your question. You are given soft drink or company branded stuff. Your waiting time is lesser than you expected. And then when you move to the interview room, that interview room is warm and friendly and it's comfortable. And the interviewers are informal, friendly. They introduce themselves and they try to put you at ease so that you can perform your best. So all of these are components of the complete experience. And if all of them are great, then there is a positive plus 10, plus 25, plus 50 or whatever. And what can be done is that, for example, for each one of these experience, basically the number of points that you allocate has to come through some kind of a data. And there has to be some kind of design thinking in first breaking a bigger experience into its micro components and then assigning either a positive or a negative score to each one of them. And then obviously the things that are repetitive, use automation or technology for that. Then you can test the model or implement the model. Typically in HR, it's not that we don't do this. We do a lot of it, but then we do it based on gut feel, or we do it based on intuitively. We do small parts of it, not the end-to-end complete experience, and we often do not have the mathematical or the analytics model for it as to which components of the experience will add relatively have a greater importance. I think we make that call more by judgment and our experience. So that's what is different. It's basically that you are doing the same thing, but the math and the analytics and the technology is actually helping you to do it better and more scientifically. So that's the second example. That brings me to the end of the presentation. There are more such examples, right? I think the key is to find everyday problem areas. They could be employees asking for certain queries on their pay slip. They could be an approval process for hiring somebody. They could be a retention discussion that you are having with an employee. So every day, these situations are very common in HR. And I think we can apply many of these principles of data analytics and even artificial intelligence to many of this. Many of these tools, by the way, are not at all expensive, and it's just a question of building the mindset of being a maker, being a builder, being a designer, and you can actually use it and you can start implementing it. So that's all from my side, Jessie. I don't know. I think there was an audio problem, so I don't know how effective it was, but yeah, that brings me to the end of the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Sharad. Yeah, the audio was a little weak, but we were able to hear you, so that's fine. I'm going to request those who are not speaking to mute themselves as well. Yeah, thanks. Now, there are two questions that came in, and Manish and Sharad, you can answer one of them maybe. The first one is that what are the new tools that people can use? I mean, the examples. And maybe Manish, you want to take that one.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question. I believe moving to this new world, right, it's not going to be like you're going to pick some off the shelf tool and you should be good. I think there is going to be a fundamental shift. There is going to be a radical change, the way HR as well as other business functions work. And that's where I think, it has to be more of a bottom-up approach that organizations really need to follow than just looking for tools. But something that we have explained in the book very well, which is on the AHEAD model, and the AHEAD, the acronym AHEAD stands for automation, and then, the HALOS. HALOS means data, and then you have enhancement. It's all about enhancing your people, something that I talked about. And also the market of abundance. When you're going to leverage the new machine, the artificial intelligence and the automation in your own function, you will see that there is an abundance of opportunities that will get created. And then discovery, so once you're going to free up your own people from some of the mundane tasks, right, then obviously there is plenty of opportunity to focus on what really matters to business and from business growth perspective. So there is an AHEAD model. It's more of a framework, not exactly a tool, but a framework that organizations can adopt. And within that framework, you have to figure it out, which tools are going to be more relevant. But there is no one size fits all, when it comes to this new machine age. As I said, it's a fundamental shift for organizations, including HR. And it's all about, starting, the way we are going to, change the way we are going to exceed and succeed, in this new world.
Great. Actually, there's another question which has just come in, and I'm going to field this one to Sharad, which is in an organization at a nascent stage when culture is under transformation, how can retention methodology be implemented and how do you measure it?
Right. So it's basically what is called as the first principles thinking, right? If there is, when you think about something analytically or when you are approaching it from a data-driven management point of view, you think about what is the problem, what are the different factors that contribute to it, and how to solve it, right? So so even in a new organization, you have to basically think about what are the different factors which contribute to retention, and they are not very different. It's just that the relative importance of each one is different in the kind of organization that you are in, and then you mathematically measure it through data, which is both past data as well as your current employees' data, and then you build certain hypotheses basically, and then you test the hypothesis through data to either prove it or to disprove it.
Great. Manish, do you also want to give a perspective on that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, what's the question? It's about the retention thing?
Yeah. In a nascent organization, any tips for retention and any frameworks?
Yeah, I think when you talk about the retention, right, obviously everything it's going to boil down to the purpose thing. If people feel connected about the work that they are doing, then obviously they are going to stay back. It's no longer about the paycheck or about the title or the promotion thing. It's more about the purpose of doing the job. That's going to be very much important, especially when you see, all the monotonous tasks are going to be taken care by robots. Then what's going to matter to humans is the value that you're going to add to the business as well as to yourself. That's where I believe providing the purpose of doing a job is going to be much more important, which is going to help address the retention issues as well.
Manish, there's another question for you, which is what kind of analysis business head would like to see from HR analysis on monthly reviews?
Yeah, I think that's that's a very good question. I believe one thing that you should be looking at, what are the tasks that my people perform, and on a day-to-day basis. And majority of tasks that are going to take up, their time. If it is about screening candidates, which is contributing 20% of their time, that should be automated. And your people, should be focused on more important and more strategic tasks that are going to add greater value to the business. So from analysis, standpoint, right, I believe my suggestion would be looking at, what are the tasks that people are performing, and how some or many of those tasks can be automated. It doesn't mean that you're going to reduce your workforce, but rather you're going to help them become much more efficient, productive, and the sense of belongingness, with the organization.
Also, Manish, there was a question on specifically if you're a small business, what kind of tools can you look at from an automation or a bot perspective?
Yeah, so from automation or bot perspective, if you see, there are a number of startups, that are there in the market, and also some of the large organizations like Blue Prisma. Blue Prisma has been doing some wonderful stuff around the robotic process automation, and now a number of startups that are, coming up providing their solutions, and obviously companies like, Cognizant can also help. But a lot depend on, what are your priorities and why you really want to apply the automation tools. Being a small business, do you really need it? I think that should be the first question you really need to ask. But yes, if you really need it, then obviously you can look for some of the standard tools. And also, I believe, some of the open source related tools that are coming up, which you can, keep an eye on. But ultimately, I think the more important question is, why do you need automation at first place, especially when you're a small business?
Manish?
Yes.
Sorry, okay. Your question was why do you need automation as a small business?
Yeah, even for automation, even for the small business, why do you need automation for the small business? It's just that mainly from enhancing some of the tasks that you're performing or addressing some of the issues that you're doing. I think that the more important question is how automation is going to help you become a more agile and more nimble business in the future. So there are a number of tools, as I said, available in the market, and also companies like Blue Prism are providing, some automation related tools.
So there is one last question, but we're running out of time, which was, do you have any case studies similar to Unilever that was mentioned? But before I let you answer that, I just want everyone to know that we're running a program to identify India's top 50 HROs, and it does, recognize leadership, does recognize tool usage, and it's very different. So take a look at that and see if you qualify. And now over to you, Manish, for the last question. Any case studies that people can look up?
Yeah, so other than Unilever, I believe there is another interesting case study from Google itself, how Google actually tracks their employee behavior, and the rationale behind doing it is to provide more strategic tasks to their own people so that they can be more productive. And again, right, something, that we were discussing earlier about the retention thing. So obviously, if people are going to get a purpose of doing a work, then obviously they are going to get more and more connected with the business. So Google is doing some interesting stuff around the analysis, how they are tracking their employee behavior with their own consent, and the way they are providing the personalized experience, to each of their employees. If you can do a bit of Googling, you can come across, a couple of articles related to what Google is doing. But yeah, that's another case study, I believe, very interesting one that people can refer to.
Okay, with that, we're out of time. So thanks to everyone for joining us, and thanks especially to Manish and Sharad for sharing your expertise. And we hope to see you all at our next webinar. And if you'd like to stay posted on updates, you can share your email ID, you can get a newsletter, or you can let us know your mobile number and we'll give you our WhatsApp group as well. So thanks so much to everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.